Hello. Today I want to talk about the day that I knew was coming, but hoped would never be here, and that's the day I have to start repaying my federal student loans. So if you don't know, I graduated earlier this May with a bachelor's of science in biology and a minor in chemistry. And over the past 4 years, I have been learning a lot about the world of science, meeting some incredible people, and making a ton of memories, just overall enjoying my college experience. But this didn't come for free. So luckily, I was able to take out a lot of federal student loans, which have low interest rates, and there were the unsubsidized ones that didn't start interest until I graduated, which is right about now. So now my unsubsidized loans are very similar to the subsidized ones that I had been paying off over the past 4 years. I just kept the interest off so I didn't have to worry about the interest compounding over time. That got me thinking, once these student loans hit me with a monthly payment, this is way lower than I thought it was going to be. So I started looking into why the monthly payment wasn't as much as I had been expecting, and I found that I'm on a 10-year payment plan, which, if you think about it, is a lot of interest over time, as most of the interest for these are simple interests that are accrued each year. They actually accrue each day, but they count it as a yearly interest rate. So I started talking to my dad about it, and he had recommended that I pay twice a week every month. So that's 8 payments every month. That's Tuesdays and Thursdays, breaking down your monthly payment into these smaller payments, because he claimed that it would bring down the amount of interest over time. I started to recall a class that I had thought was useless my freshman year, and that was a business math that taught me about investing and mortgage payments and things that I thought at the time weren't really useful. But I remembered that there were a ton of formulas, all for different types of things that you want to do with money over time. And I Googled one of them, and I think that this is the answer to breaking down my payment plan and my ideas. My payments right now for these federal loans are very low per month, because it's stretched out over 10 years, which that automatically increases the amount of interest that I'll be paying over time, making the full payment overall higher. And I'm trying to pay as little as possible, just because, who wouldn't want to do that? And since I don't have too many other expenses right now, I want to try to break that 10-year plan into 5 years. So I started looking into how they figured out these monthly payments. So I'm going to try to show you guys the differences between my dad's idea of making 2 payments every week and the monthly payments that they're asking for over 10 years. And I'll try to break that down into 5-year increments or 10-year increments. This video is going to be very similar to a previous video I had on rate law examples. And I'm just going to take formulas and some definitions and try to work you through the math and how to figure out some of these payments, because there's not a lot that they're saying as far as the monthly payments. They just have it all figured out for me, and I can auto allocate, I can auto pay, I can do all these things. But there's nothing really breaking it down, and it's kind of annoying me. So I really wanted to get to the bottom of this. So I started clicking around their website, and I found a definition for daily interest. And so my first loan is at 3.73%. So that's the interest every year, but they're actually calculating it per day and adding that every day that you're not paying. And I found that out by, first of all, this definition saying that the current principal balance is being multiplied by your interest rate and then divided by 365.25, which is the amount of days in a year, including the leap year calculation. So it's crazy that they're that precise, but I guess I should have expected that from the federal government. And then we have the accrued interest definition over here, which is interest times the days since your last payment, which again just calls back to the fact that they're calculating this every day. So it kind of made me think that the way my dad had been thinking was pretty legitimate, and we might be able to save some money if we make those 2 payments per week. Again, I found this formula from Googling it, but I had recalled it from the course I took for mortgage payments. So the MP is supposed to be your mortgage payment, and I just changed it to my payment. So the P stands for principal, and that's how much your loan is, how it started out, and mine was $3,500. And since it was subsidized, I didn't have a lot of interest tacked on quite yet. So we're going to keep it $3,500 for all these definitions. And below this, I had written down all of the other loans, but I feel like I don't need all of those or to show everyone the amount of debt I have. So I'm just going to be working with my first loan that I ever received from the federal government. And then the R is the rate, which is the interest rate here. And N is the number of payments you want to make per year, which will be tucked into here and here. This is a fraction. And then the T is the number of years that you'll be making. So that's the time. So I'm going to start with my first one, and that is how I wanted to do my dad's version of all of this. And basically, I already had it typed up on my trusty good old TI-84, and I have my principal plugged in right here for the formula, And then on the top, that's my interest rate. You got to convert the percentage to a fraction or a decimal, and that's just moving it to the left 2 spaces if you don't know. And then I'm dividing it by 12 because I want to do the monthly payments first to see if they were similar to the ones that I was supposed to be making through the website. And then I plugged in all the rest. It's kind of redundant, except for you got to remember that you're doing it over 10 years because that's what they have. Whenever I hit enter, I get $34.99, we'll round up, a month. And that's about what it is for the first loan, at least. The rest of the loans are tacked into each monthly payment, which ended up being about $300 per month, which again, isn't as much as I thought it would be. So I want to try to turn this into 5 years and see what the payments would be like. And all you have to do to make it 5 years is change the 10 in this formula to a 5. So we'll do that really quick here. And that should be all you have to do. And that now turns my monthly payment into $64.03 a month for just this one loan. So the formula seems to be working as far as I'm concerned. And now I just wanted to figure out if there was a difference in the way my dad was thinking about doing things. And so what we'll do for that is, instead of it being 12 payments, so that's where this 12 came from because there's 12 months in a year, we're going to make this 104 payments because it's going to be every week, twice a week. So that's 52 weeks in a year times 2, which is 104. So there's 104 payments in total for the year. So let me just change these real quick. And make sure you don't forget that negative there because that'll mess up the whole formula for you. I got to insert right there, 104. And we'll start out with 10 years to see how similar it might be to the previous one. All right, now that it's all plugged in, I got the 104 payments over 10 years, and we'll see how much that brings it to. So each Tuesday and Thursday, I should be paying $4.03 on this loan to keep up with what my dad had said to do. So in order to figure out how much you would pay over time, you just take this and you'll end up multiplying that by, first of all, the 10 years, but also how many payments you're making for those years, and that's 104 each year that I'm paying. And that would be a total of $4,193.86 for a $3,500 loan. So to figure out how that compares to their estimation of that 10-year plan that I said wasn't as much as I thought was going to be, we'll do the same thing where we'll do 12 payments a year because it's every month, and that's over the span of 10 years. And that will total $4,198.61. So that's a lot of interest over time, and you can compare these by subtracting this to this. And that's, if I do my dad's method, I'll save $4.75 on just that first loan over 10 years, which is not a lot of money. I'd have to keep going into the website twice a week and specifying for each loan how much I want to pay just to save $5, which I'm going to do probably. But I wanted to show you how much interest you'd be paying for those 10 years if you follow their plan. So all we would do is take the total, which we had just figured out, and you'd subtract it from the original balance, which was $3,500. And we end up with almost $700 in interest. So again, I'd like to break this down into 5-year plan just to see how much that would change. So we're going to take this $64 a month plan for each month, 12, and then for the 5 years, and we end up with $3,841, which is way closer to the $3,500. As a matter of fact, it's only $341 in interest, which makes it a difference of $356. So it cuts your interest almost in half just by doing a 5-year plan instead of a 10-year plan, which makes sense. I mean, 5 is half of 10, and all the math is mathing pretty well. So all I'm going to do is use this formula for each of my student loans. Again, just changing the interest rate for depending on each loan, and I'll be changing the principal because some of them are different. And I'm going to try to figure out what works for me now. So I'll play with how much money I have each month from working and see how much I can spend on this to hurry up and get out of the gate and just lower the principal so the interest over time is less. I might switch to a 10-year plan in the future. Once I become a grad student, I'll probably be suffering for money because from what I found, they're only paying for tuition and a little bit of a monthly payment for housing. So that's all I wanted to talk about in this video, and I hope you found it helpful. Again, I think the key is this formula here because you can plug in the numbers depending on your financial situations. And they have the loan simulator where you can decide based off of how much money you want to spend each month. But I found it kind of like jagged to work with, and there's not a lot of explanations behind it. I like to see where the numbers are coming from because it makes me like logically think through everything. And if I don't like the 5-year rate, maybe I'll do 7 years in the future, and I might do 10 years at the end of the day. But I want to start out by cranking up the payments and figuring out how much I'm willing to spend each month, because it's more than they're telling me to spend, and I don't want to have to be paying this off for 10 years unless I have to. And right now I don't have to. So I'm in a fortunate situation where I can play around with some of these numbers here and try to figure out where the rest of my 7 student loans are going to land me. Because even though I showed an example for 1 loan, I still have 7 others to be messing around with, each with different interest rates. But once you figure it out, you just keep making those payments based off of that. And maybe you like the way my dad does things and it saves you a couple bucks, and maybe you don't, but at least you could, see what happens whenever you change how many payments you're making each year and how much interest you'd end up saving from in the future. I think the real kicker is the 10 years versus the 5 years, and that's what I really want to try to get on. Again, hopefully this helps somebody out, and yeah, that's it.